that plan or this plan. So all these things are analytical skills, analytical thinking. So you have to think and then respond, think and then react. So for that, reading would help you to understand life and how to move forward in life. Okay, strengthens your grammars, structures, and style. Okay, everyone has their unique style, unique way of living. Similarly, unique way of expression, unique way of communication. Some might be funnier, some might be very serious, some might be using very formal language. So it depends on your style. So you have to understand and be comfortable with it. So for that you have to read. Read and understand what is your style. Explore. There are various styles of communication. You would understand it when you read. Okay. So read for grammar, read for structure and styles. Then reading has 4 techniques: skimming, scanning, intensive reading, and extensive reading. Okay. Skimming is where you quickly go through it. Okay. Scanning is where you look for specific information. Like skimming you do whether it's interesting or not. Okay. You just skim it like newspapers. You just skim it to understand what is the news, what is trending. Okay. But scanning is where you look for specific information. Like you scan for that particular page on newspaper, like sports or entertainment. So you have to scan for specific information. Then comes intensive reading and extensive reading. So intensive reading is careful reading for in-depth meaning, where you read for transforming yourself to understanding the real meaning of life, let's say, to change your perspective, your thinking. So it needs deeper meaning. It needs deeper understanding. Extensive reading is just for pleasure. You read just to kill the time. Okay. So in past times, many of you have done extensive reading where you have to pass your time and you're bored, so you read. Okay. So that kind of reading is extensive reading where you read for just an entertainment. But when you do an intensive reading, it is for understanding. Okay, deeper understanding. Like intensive reading of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad, all those grunts. So all those things are for changing your personality, changing your mindset. Okay. So that is intensive reading. So as I've said in earlier classes also, you have to have 3 books in your bag. Okay. First is related to your personality, how you should behave in society, how should you behave when you join any kind of organization. Okay. Personality development, psychology. So all those are one category of books which you should read. Next is related to business. So you would be having your salary, your money, so packages. So how to handle that money. So you have to read about it. So try to have those books in your backpack. And next is your subject specific, career specific books. So these 3 kinds of books you should read with intensive reading. Okay, you have to understand its deeper meaning. So after reading is writing. Okay, writing has their own challenges. Okay, you make spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes. Okay, it should not happen. Those are silly mistakes. Up till now, it might be okay for your 10th and 12th, but not your BTech or university level degree. Okay, making grammatical mistake is a silly mistake. Now you have to have proper understanding of tenses, proper understanding when to use what tense. Okay, so we would have separate section for functional grammar where we would focus more on functionality rather than structures. 12 tenses are not needed in an interview. No one would be asking you 12 tenses, but they would be asking you questions for which you need tenses to answer. Okay, so we would understand its functionality, its use in that answer. Okay, so for that we would have separate session. Okay, then because of poor structure and tone, many of you fall apart. Okay, structure is something which you should adhere by. Okay, where there are full stop, where there are commas, where there should be exclamation, where there should be question mark. It is something which is very important. it would change meaning altogether in writing. Okay, while speaking, we would understand from your intonation pattern, your accent, or your rising and falling tone, but we would not understand what is going on in the writing. Okay, so for that you have to write in proper structure. Okay, there should be formal and informal tones. So formal for business or workplace situations, where you should be very formal, how to speak to your colleague, how to speak to the boss, how to speak with your clients. So it is something which is very formal. You can be informal with your friend, with your family members, but not with that formality, informality with your colleagues. Okay, they are workplace. Okay, they are working there. So you have to have that in your mind. What to speak, what not to speak about, what to write, what not to write about. So you have to think and analyze. Have that critical thinking with you. Okay. Then in writing there should be no ambiguity. Okay, ambiguity is something where meaning is something else and you are writing something else. You are speaking something else, you mean something else, but it leads to miscommunication, and that is grave problem. Miscommunication, as I said earlier, is the root of layoffs. It is the root for losing jobs today. So you have to communicate, but there should be no miscommunication in it. It should be clear-cut message. So in the writing, you have to write emails, reports, your applications when you apply for a job. Okay, application, research proposals. You propose your proposal in meetings. So minutes by minutes of meetings, agendas of meetings. So all those things are where formal communication happens. It should be clear. It should show your professional person. Okay, it should grab the attention. So it should be very effective way of communication in writing. Okay, especially it needs proper organization of your complex ideas. Okay, in speaking you can be simple, but in writing you have to be having complex sentences. Okay, complex ideas, and they have to be arranged logically. There should be proper sequence to it. Okay, it is important for your academic and professional setup, especially because in writing you have to do a lot of work when it comes for academics, like your assignments are there, your proposals, research proposals are there, where you have to write everything. Okay, each and every detail you have to write, how the process is, how you came to a conclusion. There should be proper introduction, middle part, and conclusion to your write-up. Okay, and it should be very formal. It should show your professional thinking. Your personality should be such that it should be visible in that writing. So you have to have those things. Okay, your critical thinking again. Okay, memory again, and self-expression. So you have to think your style. Self-expression goes for style. So same goes for your speaking also. You have to focus on your memory. Okay, you have to focus on your style, your critical thinking while reading as well as in writing. Okay, so these are few incorrect sentences. Just go through it. Okay, I would pause for a minute and then again we would start. I would discuss about why they are incorrect. Okay. Okay. So first is along with. Okay. So where to use it? You are not selling a land along with your wife. You are with your wife and selling a land. Okay. So there should be proper sentence there. Again, it leads to a miscommunication and misinterpretation, and that can lead to an embarrassing situation or something which is very dangerous for your job profile. Okay. So and in next sentence, holiday is something which is incorrect. Holiday means holiday for all, but here it should be leaves. Okay, you are applying for a leave, not declaring a holiday. Okay, so when you suffer, you apply for a leave. Then I am enclosed with, no, you are not enclosing yourself with a letter or a covering note. So you have to write, I am ending this letter with an enclosure. Okay, or to sum up, to enclose with, then you have to write your idea. Okay. Then there is an advertisement where the sentence goes totally wrong. Okay. Don't kill your wife with a dirty work. No. Let the cleaning work do the machine, and let the chores be done by it. Okay. So you have to think it in terms of meaning, what meaning it would induct. Okay. So you have to deduct and induct the deeper meaning. Okay. Understand and then reciprocate. She loves the dog more than her husband. No. She loves dogs is one thing, more than husband is another thing. Okay. So you have to think in those terms. This is not which is going to be accepted by that husband. Okay. So you have to think and then reply. Yeah, there is always a better way in communication. There is a story where a blind man was sitting in front of corporate office, and every day the passerbys would look at him, but they were confused why to help him, because he just like help me, but he never thought of something else so that he would get money and can operate his eye. But one day, a lady employee of that corporate office came there and wrote something different on that slate and went by. And after that, money started pouring on his uh, for him. So he wondered what happened on that day. So then, when the same lady came passed by the another day, he stopped her and asked, "What did you write on the slate which made so much difference in my life?" She said, "I have written the same thing but in a different way. What was written earlier was, I am blind, please help." But what she has written was, there is a beautiful sunset outside, but I cannot see it. Okay? That thing, that emotion, that frustration and suffering is properly visible, properly addressable from that particular sentence, and that made a difference. People started helping poor guy. So you need to understand how to use language effectively, your communication effectively. And that is why you have to apply your knowledge. Okay? Don't just keep those grammars, those vocabularies in your mind. You have to use them. Okay. Next comes mediums and barriers of communication. So for mediums, you have verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication goes for face-to-face communication. Um, uh, so verbal means where you use words, okay, for speaking and writing. So you use words. It can be verbal, where you have to speak face to face, or there would be video, like we are conferencing, video conferencing, or telephonic conversation. There are group discussions, okay, group activities are there where you have to communicate verbally, okay, in meetings, in interviews, presentations, and speeches. So for there, you have to have proper verbal communication, proper words and vocabulary. The key part here is you would get immediate feedback when it comes for oral communication. And that is why the one who is a good speaker grabs attention, solves the problem quickly. Okay. So in an interview, if you're good in speaking, you would crack that interview very efficiently. Okay. It's not a big deal, but you should be that kind of proficient. Okay. For speaking, you should focus on your pitch, what is important, what is not important. Your word stress matters a lot. Where to stress, where not to stress. So you have to think about it and then use it properly so that your speaking would be effective. As for an example, this is my book. So I am stressing on my. So that word stress resembles to possession. Okay? Means possession. This is my book. If I say this is my notebook, this is my notebook. So there are many things in the room, and I'm pointing on that particular notebook. Okay, so that is what the same sentence changes its meaning because of the word stress. Okay, so you need to understand where to stress, which word to stress in a sentence. Okay. In an intonation pattern, as I said, there are rising tone and falling tone. So you have to listen to understand these things. Just theory would not help. You have to practice. You have to listen to the native speakers so that you would understand what is word stress, what are intonation patterns. There are many errors in it, as we have seen in your mind, in your language assignment, where they were given uh, sentences, dialogues in such a way that intonation pattern and sentence stress changes the meaning. Okay, accent changes the meaning. Then are non-verbal communication where words are not used. Okay, like facial expressions, gestures like hand movements, nodding. It shows like you're agreeing to someone, whether you're confident, your posture is confident. So you have to understand those things. Okay, your appearance matters a lot. In formal meetings, you have to have formal dress up. You have to be very confident. You have to show your professionalism there. So your appearance matters there, as well as your visuals when you are presenting. Those visuals are also non-verbal. They are not words, but they speak a lot. What kind of visuals you are using while presentation? Images, graphs, diagrams. So it should be proper. Okay. So those are very important for your non-verbal communication. Then comes writing, where, as I said, punctuation, in detail writing. Okay. Sentence structures matters a lot. Okay. So let's it grandma. So you are inviting grandma. But when you say let's it grandma, you are not pausing in between. There is no comma there. Then you are it means like you are eating grandma. So it changes meaning altogether. So you need to understand how to speak and how to write both. So as I've said, reading and listening is something which is related to your mind. You store that information, but it is more visible through your writing and speaking. The more you read and listen, the more better your writing and speaking would be. You have to listen and read. Those things are only going to help you to develop your grammar, vocabulary, sentence formation, sentence structures. Okay. Then comes types of communication or mediums of communication. So downward communication is where superiors communicate to their subordinates, employees. So there is proper instructions there. There are updates about some kind of decision. There are vision mission statements of company. So you have to understand that when you go for an interview. Okay. And it offer a feedback and approval. So you need approvals. Okay. So those are given by the higher authorities. So that is a kind of downward communication. For example, company has memos, managers give instructions to their team. So you have to be very clear, respectful, and easy to implement kind of sentences. Okay, if you are a manager and you are communicating like that. Then comes upward communication, where bottom, that is subordinates, talks to supervisors, superiors. So there you might give a feedback about the meeting. You need to report your progress, give what progress you have made in that particular project. You have to report it. Okay. Express concerns, what can be harmful for that company, and give suggestions if that particular product needs some kind of improvement. So you have to provide your suggestions, because depending on that, your success would be in that project. Okay. So you have to put forth in such a way that it should be humble request to make some suggestions, to have some approvals for that particular um, service or product. Okay. So as you have been given feedback forms, so you have to provide your feedback. That is a kind of upward communication. Okay. So students sharing feedback with faculty. So it's an upward communication. So you have to provide honest, respectful, and constructive feedback. Okay, if there should be positiveness. Then comes horizontal communication. We need to collaborate also. Okay, when it comes for company, you need to collaborate and get work done. Okay, resolve conflicts, share knowledge. So that is where horizontal communication, teamwork comes in. Okay. Then there is formal and informal communication. Informal, there should be structured way of communication. It should be official channel. You have to follow hierarchy. And informal, it's spontaneous. It's a quick decision uh, making where you have to, let's say there's a urgent meeting. So you have to informally communicate that to your employee, okay, to your coworker. So it's an informal way of communication. Your chit chats, your group chatting, all those are informal way of communication. So let's understand communication process. Okay, there is a sender who encodes a meaning, encodes a message. Okay, and receiver is someone who decodes that message. Okay, but in between there is something which is happening there. Okay, in between there is a medium and a feedback. So sender uses a medium, let's say an email or something, and receiver, let's say an employee, receives that email, and then receiver gives the response to that email, and then goes again back to a sender. So there is a loop, there is a circle when communication happens. And if there are barriers, then this communication is broken between. So you have to avoid these barriers. Otherwise, communication would not be complete and you would not get from that email what you want. You would not understand why your boss is not speaking to you or responding to your emails. Why? Because first you have not responded to his email or her email because of some barrier. What are those barriers? Let us understand. Okay. Use of jargons. Jargons are technical words, unfamiliar words, which the boss cannot understand. Let's say you're working as a computer engineer. So computer language, a boss cannot understand. It's not compulsory. But you have to communicate your idea in a such a way that those jargons are not used, but idea is communicated. Okay. So it should not be complicated. It should be very simple. The more complicated is, the more time it would take to understand the message. And uh, in this situation, jargons should not be used. In writing, yeah, when you write report, you can be using complicated things, but not here. Then comes emotional barriers, where you are unable to express your emotion, and because of which, or because of emotions which have control, you are unable to speak up properly. So you have to understand and avoid that barrier. Okay? Lack of interest, distractions can also lead to a barrier. Okay? So be focused when it comes for communication. It is the one single opportunity where you would complete that loop, where sender would send the message and receiver has to receive it, and receiver has to reciprocate the message. So it should be complete. There should be no um, miscommunication in between, no barrier of attention, interest, and distractions. So leave those things behind. Just complete your task and be happy. Okay, and be very relevant whom you are talking with. That in that sense you have to give the message. If that is boss, he or she would not be interested in your program. They would be interested in the final thing, final response you get from that program. So they would just have to have productivity in your uh, job. Okay, that is what is needed to them. Okay, work is done. It's okay. So that is where your relevance comes. It should be relevant information. Okay, there might be differences in your point of view. There might be differences. See, the thing is, each finger is not similar in your hand. Okay, so you have to work with all those fingers, and then work is done, okay, then the fist is full. Same is with your working. All employees would not have the same idea, same thought. So you have to think in those terms and understand a common ground. Okay. So differences would be there, but you have to come to a common ground, common solution. There are prejudices and expectations which are very unrealistic. Okay, which doesn't uh, come into reality as such. Okay, these are false assumptions which you expect. This would happen. This might have happened. You stereotype everything. Okay, stereotyping should not be there. Okay, stereotype was ऐसा ही हुआ होगा. This is only what had happened. Don't make your false assumptions. Go and see what was the reality and try to solve the problem. Okay, that is where stereotyping comes. So you have to avoid that stereotyping. Don't jump to a direct conclusion. Go step by step. Understand the problem. Who is the sender? Who is the receiver? What is the message? What is the feedback? And then go for any kind of conclusion. Okay. So there should be a correct, appropriate conclusion. So you have to understand those things and then reply. Okay. Then there are cultural differences where because of that difference, one particular word can mean different in their culture. And if you are using that word because of that simple word, you might have misunderstanding with that person. Okay. So you have to avoid those differences. So understand the person whom you are talking with, understand their culture. So because of which literary work helps you a lot to understand, let's say, English, to understand society in English, English society or English culture, British culture, American culture. So that would help you to understand these cultural differences. Then are physical barriers like there is poor noise, there is faulty mic, there is internal problem, there is technical glitch. So because of which you have to overcome that barrier and then put forth your communication. Okay. There is distance barrier also, where remote person cannot understand and go in cities and have those challenges because of those distances. Okay. So you have to use technology and avoid those barriers, physical barriers. Okay. Then there is uncomfortable, crowdy background, distracting background. It should not be there. Distractions, avoid those distractions. It is grave problem for your progress. Okay. Just be focused, attentive, be active listener, be focused when you read, understand the problem, have critical analysis, and then come for any kind of conclusion. So avoid those distractions. Those should not be part of your life. Okay. Then comes language barrier, where there are multiple language, multilingual people there. Okay. Multilingual communication is there. Because of which the miscommunication might happen. So you would avoid those translational errors. So we have seen similar thing in Mind Your Language also. Because of that translation thing, many errors were happening. Okay, it might lead to a comical or embarrassing situation, but you have to avoid it. Okay, pronunciation and accent differences, these are going to happen because English is not our first language. So that influence might be there, but you have to avoid that influence. You have to avoid and overcome this barrier. Then are psychological barriers, like you already are stressed, you are already angry, you are already uh, out of your mind. So you just come to any kind of conclusion there. Okay, that should not happen. Don't be prejudiced. Criticism is a part of life. Some might agree with you, some might disagree with your point of view. But you have to have a common ground. Understand why they are criticizing you, and then come forth. come for any kind of conclusion. Don't stereotype like that person is going to be the same person always. No, it's situation. It's time to time a person might change. His or her behavior might change. So you have to be an open-minded person. Okay? Then comes emotional barrier. As I've said, psychology has to do with your psyche. Okay, and then comes emotions. So you're excited. Suddenly you get excited and message something which is inappropriate for that particular situation. You unknowingly do those things. So you have to be aware of your emotion, keep it aside, and then respond, then communicate. Okay? It leads to overreaction. That is also one thing. Okay? Emotional, if you are, then you react a lot. Okay? You put your idea preferentially, and that is not what is communication. You have to understand and then communicate. You have to understand and then respond. So avoid that barrier. Next comes perpetual barriers, okay, because of misunderstanding, okay, or different point of view, different perspectives. And this is my way of life, that is yours, that is not how it is, okay. There is no stereotyping everything. There is not generalization of everything, okay. There are exceptions. There are things where not everything would be the same. You need to understand differences. There would be similarities, but there are going to have differences. You have to understand it and then come for any kind of conclusion rather than stereotyping it. Okay? So there is not always the one pattern to respond. Okay? There are various patterns. You have to select your choice. Okay? Select your own pattern. So this is the last part where stereotyping is expressed. So avoid that stereotyping. Don't be selective. You don't have to just select one out of all like you do in competitive exams. It's a part of your life, but it's not life. Life is ever changing. It's developing. So you have to understand it and then select your path. Don't rely on confirmations every time. I need to confirm everything. Use your common sense rather than confirming or being biased about it. Encroaching, where you have to have everything in person, everything in written. Sometimes you have to use your common sense, your mindfulness to understand the situation and respond. Okay? Don't overestimate something. Try to see reality as it is. Okay? You have to understand it and then respond. Don't overestimate it. Okay? Then rarity or exceptions are going to be there, but don't underestimate it. Like we commonly say, don't underestimate the power of common man. Okay, so don't underestimate it. Self-fulfilling, like you just be selfish and try to develop your own ideology, your own selfish desires, and complete it. No, you're there as an employee, you're there as a worker, you're there to contribute something. So think in those terms, for welfare of society, for welfare of mind, for man, so mankind as a race, um, welfare of the world, how your services and products are going to help the society. That you should be. Don't be self-fulfilling, self-professing everything. मेरे साथ ऐसा ही होता है. That should not be there. Okay. Assumptions and inferences. That is also one kind of barrier. Okay? You assume this might have happened. You infer because that person was present in the meeting, the things are happening in that meeting. No, those are assumption and inferences. Keep those things aside and just be in the meeting. Try to have objectives of the meeting. Why that meeting is, what is the plan of that meeting, what you need to do in future, what you have done in the past, okay? What are you going to be doing in your future? So you have to have those things in your mind and then come for any conclusion, any assumption. That's it for the day. Anybody who wants to ask questions can ask. Okay? I would or type in the chat